So I want to give a quick update of what's going on ever since this NAR settlement that happened on August 17th when it comes to buyers and getting a buyer broker agreement executed with their realtor. So if you don't know by now, and it's been a little over a month and a half, if you are a buyer, whether you're a first-time home buyer or a second buyer, third buyer, what have you, it is now required that you get a buyer broker agreement signed with your realtor if they're going to represent you when you purchase a property. Now, some of the issues that we're seeing right now is, believe it or not, there's some people that are going under contract and do not have an executed buyer broker agreement. So that's number one. So you got to get that executed, especially if you're having a realtor represent you. The second thing we're seeing is that a lot of buyers are not understanding what they're signing. So this is really important. You have to sit down with your agent, have them explain, what is this buyer broker agreement? What are you agreeing to as far as their fee? How is that fee going to be paid? So this is really, really crucial. So I want to give you a recent example of a buyer I had that had an executed agreement, but it turned out had no idea what they were signing. In other words, their realtor never explained to them what it meant, what the value that the agent was bringing to the table for that buyer, and what their fee was. Now, it is the buyer's responsibility because they signed it, but the agent has a responsibility to be clear about what the buyer is signing, especially since this is all new. Well, in this particular case, the buyer agreed to pay the agent a 3% fee. However, when the agent presented the offer to the listing agent and the seller, they only agreed to cover 2% of the agent's fee. So that leaves a 1% shortage. Well, the buyer in this case was a first-time home buyer, had very little funds, so they could not afford that 1% fee. But more importantly, they had no idea that they had even agreed to a 3% fee and that there was the possibility that they would have to come out of pocket to pay their agent. So listen, it's really important out there for both agents and buyers to understand these new changes. If you're an agent, you got to explain your value to the client, explain to them what this buyer broker agreement means. And if you're going to get your fee negotiated with the seller and the listing agent, that's great. But just make sure the buyer understands that and let them know the possibilities if that fee is not fully covered. And buyers, if you're out there looking for an agent to represent you, make sure you find one that is going to explain their value and sit down with you and go over the different options of how they get paid and how that works before you execute that buyer broker agreement. Lastly, it's really important if you're a buyer out there that you get pre-approved first. One of the reasons is there's a lot of different programs out there. There could be down payment assistance funds that you qualify, or perhaps if you buy in a particular area, you might get additional funds or credits. So it's really important that you get with your mortgage lender first, see what you can afford, see what programs might be available before you engage with a realtor and start looking at properties or even execute a buyer's broker's agreement. So if you have any questions regarding this, feel free to reach out. I hope you have a great rest of your day.